same welfare system, hopefully, as we have in Denmark. So I do think the Greenlanders can decide for themselves in the Danish opinion. I also agree that I'm not sure that all countries in the world have the same views on international law as we do.
Do you think that being part of the Kingdom of Denmark protects Greenland to some extent from the desires of neighbouring countries on its sovereignty, on its resources?
I definitely believe so. Being part of Denmark is part of NATO. We have a defense cooperation in that way. And the European Union, which Denmark is also a member of, and also investing in Greenland. And as I said, I do believe it's a Greenlandic choice whether they want to cut the bonds completely or still want to have a cooperation with us.
Would you miss them if they went?
I definitely would. I would. Because we have Greenlanders living all over Denmark. I grew up with a Greenlandic neighbor, and it's part of our kingdom that Greenland is part of it as well. And the bonds between families are blended together with one Danish parent, one Greenlandic parent. And I do think we would miss a bond together.
Thank you very much. Kune Fenke from the opposition Nelarak Party. Is independence a realistic option?
We don't use the word independence anymore, and we haven't used it for quite a while. We are using external self-determination, statehood, and because independence in a way is utopia. Denmark
Utopia 的简体中文翻译及相关信息：一、核心翻译，词性，名词，中文翻译乌托邦，发音乌托邦为音译词，读音与英文 utopia 发音 utopia， 英式 utopia， 美式对应是国际通用的固定译法。二、含义解析，指一种理想中完美的社会、国家或生活环境，通常具备公平正义、物质富足、没有贫困与冲突、人们生活幸福和谐等特征，但这种状态在现实中往往难以实现，多作为一种美好愿景被提及。三、词源背景，该词由16世纪英国空想社会主义者托马斯·莫尔 （Thomas More） 在其1516年出版的著作《乌托邦》中创造。莫尔将希腊语 ao 译为无和 topos 译为地方组合，字面意思是不存在的地方，后逐渐引申为理想社会的概念。四、常见搭配与例句。五、语喻与使用场景，可用于学术领域，如社会学、政治学讨论理想社会模型时，文学创作描述虚构的完美世界，也可在日常语境中用于比喻令人向往但不切实际的美好场景，有时会带有轻微的不现实的隐含意味，需结合上下文判断。例，指望通过单一政策就能实现社会问题的全面解决，多少有些乌托邦色彩。
Denmark is not independent. They are part of the supranational state, the European Union, and also part of many international organizations for their security guarantees and so forth. So what we need here is take away all the small feelings that you will miss us, and it's a part of the kingdom, and we will respect international law. You annexed this country in 1953, and you colonized it in 1721. So let's take away all the good feelings and goodwill and so forth, and take a look at the legal stuff. The legal stuff is that we as a people have the right to external self-determination, and that is the decision of the Greenlandic people. And the Greenlandic people is a democratic, representative democracy. The government of Greenland has the right to say to Denmark, we want to be have more external self-determination. We want Greenland as our own legal country. Let's start the negotiations. It doesn't mean that we become, in your vocabulary, independent as such immediately. We will negotiate the terms with Denmark. It could be a free association. It could be many things. But right now, Denmark has the prerogative of defense, security, and many other stuff. hence, we are still a de facto colony. So if Denmark wants to adhere to international law, they should also adhere to decolonization law.
Can I just ask you, if you take
that
right, Kuno, if you take that right
Yeah.
and you take control of your foreign and defence policy, you assume, let's not argue over the words, sovereignty, then you also assume financial independence, and you say farewell to the pretty impressive sums that Denmark sends your way every year. You're ready to do that. You're ready to pay the financial price.
I don't buy that narrative. It depends on the negotiation. So it depends on.
Do you think you'd still get
bona
money?
fide,
You'd think you'd still get money,
it
half the
depends
budget
on the
paid for by
bona
Denmark.
fide agreement that we have according to the self-rule law on how we should settle this. Of course, Greenland would need security guarantees from our allies, and we are in the North American continent. And let's say that war breaks out in Europe. I don't think that Denmark will be able to help us immediately. Now they're building up the military here, but it won't be enough at all. So it depends on how we see the geopolitics here. And Greenland, as a sovereign country, can have a bilateral agreement with Denmark, but also the defense agreement with the United States from 1951 could be a bilateral agreement with Greenland, US. Okay. But also, if we have a good agreement and a good negotiation with Denmark, it could be a real trilateral agreement. So the possibilities are open. It's only a matter of how we negotiate.
Thank you very much. Let's go back to our question. And Michael, what do you make of the answers? And let me have your opinion.
Yeah, it's a very hard topic to kind of get around and navigate in, because there's all these agendas. But my point of view is that, of course, I think the majority of the people here want independence and want to make their own choices, but it depends on how and what's going to happen. My opinion is maybe it's not realistic.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your thoughts as well. We really appreciate it. Let's go to our second questioner from Narsaq in Greenland, but currently studying in Denmark.
My question is, why are indigenous communities so often the one asked to bear the environmental and cultural cost of mining projects they didn't ask for? I'm thinking about like Narsaq, for instance.
Forgive me, because your hometown has a specific issue at the moment, doesn't it, with a potential mine? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think our politicians knows about it. It's the Greenland projects that I'm thinking about. We have like this thing that I'm against it, so I can tell you. Okay,
all right. I mean, it's about both rare earths and
rare earth minerals.
uranium, both of which are highly sought after. Kuno Fenke, can I ask you from the opposition Naleraq party, the question, why are indigenous communities so often the ones to pay environmental and cultural costs for mining projects they didn't ask for? Do you accept that premise, that has been the way it is and why it is?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Avara about that. And that's about the definition of Greenlandic people and indigenous people. And the government of Greenland has ratified the ILO 169 and UNDRIP through Denmark. Hence, we are not a state. It's Denmark that has the highest responsibility regarding international law and conventions. But the Greenlandic government, as the responsible part here, doesn't want to acknowledge indigenous people. They don't want to register who is indigenous people. It's a group right, it's an individual right, and hence we don't know who is protected. Hence we have a general government here in Greenland that is supposed to protect all people, but also protect people, indigenous people, and also people with disabilities, children, and so forth. They have special rights, but indigenous peoples are protected. We have ratified the law, but we are not protecting them per se.
Ratify 的简体中文翻译及相关信息：一、核心翻译词性动词，中文翻译批准、认可。发音批准、认可。根据具体语境选择对应译法，核心含义均为通过正式程序确认某事的有效性。二、含义解析。 只通过正式的法律程序、官方决议或权威认证，确认某项协议、条约、法案、决定等的合法性与有效性，使其正式生效。通常用于政府、国际组织、企业或正式机构的官方场景，强调程序性和权威性。3. 常见搭配与例句。4. 语域与近义词辨析。语域主要用于正式语境，如政治、法律、外交、商业管理等领域，日常口语中较少使用，日常表达同意常用 approve、agree 等。近义词对比。
The law, but we are not protecting them per se legally because the government of Greenland doesn't want to register them. And of course, the people in Narsaq should have a free, they have to consent to mining projects like that, or even if it's like a very local area, is a mine that is very close to a town. I think the town should have a democratic right, or the whole country should have a democratic plebiscite or referendum in regards to yes or no to have these big projects.
Well, I think the question is quite complex because I totally agree with Avark in that you can see globally that indigenous peoples are usually not taken into account when mining projects are being formed. But in Greenland, I think it's quite different because we are the majority. In Greenland, Inuit are the majority, and we make up the parliament and the government. And we have rules that have public consultations on mining. When it comes to the mining project that Avark was talking about, there was a strong debate about uranium mining, yes or no. And my coalition, former coalition, my party decided to enforce a ban on uranium mining through law. And we are right now battling this case in the courts. But I think this shows that it works, that the rules work, that when there is an opposition or a worry, we have the ability, if we can pass the laws with the majority, as it should be in a democracy, we can get the laws needed. And we do have public consultations and are quite aware of the necessity of high environmental standards because it's so close to our culture. So I think we have very high environmental standards, very high standards when it comes to taking care of community involvement. And when I travel around Greenland, I always get the same questions. Is there a job for me? And do you take care of the environment? And if those questions cannot be answered satisfactorily by the companies, they will get problems locally, because they will not get the support they need to be able to follow through on their projects.
Do you believe there is any? Do you believe there is any trade-off to be had between economic development and economic and environmental degradation? I mean, do you believe there is any balance between the two, or is it always about protecting the environment?
I think it's always about protecting the environment. I think we've been very true to form in Greenland throughout different parties. It's not a partisan issue. I think in Greenland you are very much aware that environment matters. It matters for our fisheries. It matters for the local communities. It matters for our overall brand. We have been pushing for the green transition. We are very hard hit by climate crisis in Greenland. So we see the direct effects of not taking care of the environment on a global level. So I think we do take environment very serious. It does have a high ranking inside the government. It is something that is always of concern and always top of the list. And I think maybe even more so than many other countries.
Right.
So I think we do have high environmental standards and it's not negotiable.
Thank you very much indeed. Ulrik Bramgelt from Denmark itself, an analyst on the relationship. This is a potentially hugely important economic resource for Greenland, isn't it? But it is largely unexploited.
Unexploited 的简体中文翻译及相关信息。1. 核心翻译，词性，形容词。中文翻译，未开发的，未利用的。发音，未开发的，未利用的。根据描述对象的不同选择更贴合的译法，核心均指未被开发、使用以发挥价值的状态。2. 含义解析，指某个事物，如自然资源、土地、技术、 机会等，尚未被人类或相关主体开发、利用或挖掘其潜在价值，仍处于原始或闲置状态，强调存在潜力但未被启用的属性。3. 常见搭配与例句。4. 语域与使用场景，可用于正式书面语，如经济报告、环境评估、学术论文和日常语境，描述
The trouble is with a lot of these strategic minerals and critical minerals is that they are there in the ground. Some of them has value, but the value can only be realized by digging it up and having it processed and refined. And a lot of this procession and refining takes place in China. And a lot of the digging currently takes place in other places in the world where perhaps environmental standards are not as they are in Greenland. So in that sense, it's been really a hope for the Greenlandic economy for decades. But there's really not much movement, not maybe because of Greenland, but because of the global production chains. So there might be stuff happening geoeconomically, geopolitically, that will make it relevant to be mining in Greenland. But then Greenland still needs to compete with other jurisdictions in terms of the royalties, the environmental standards, the local engagement.
Well, and you think that would rule it out economically because of the standards that Greenland would demand and because of the cost of digging and mining in such an inhospitable environment?
I just see that there is a competition between jurisdictions,
yeah.
And I see that
jurisdictions 的简体中文翻译及相关信息。1. 核心翻译，词性，名词，通常用复数形式。中文翻译：司法管辖区，管辖范围，权限区域。发音：司法管辖区 Guanxia 范围，权限区域。根据具体语境选择最贴合的译法。核心均指拥有法律或行政管辖权的特定区域或范围。2. 含义解析。指在法律、行政或司法体系中某个机构，如法院、政府部门、国家、地区所拥有的管辖权力覆盖的地理区域或事务范围。例如，不同国家有各自的司法管辖区，同一国家内的不同省份、城市也可能存在不同的行政或司法管辖范围，超出该范围则相关机构无权行使权利。3. 常见搭配与例句。4. 语域与使用场景，主要用于正式语境，如法律、司法、行政、国际事务等领域。
Thank you very much for your question. Why are so many
descent 的简体中文翻译及相关信息。1. 核心翻译，词性，名词。descent 含义丰富，需根据具体语境选择对应中文译法。核心含义及常见翻译如下：含义1，血统、出身、世系，指个人的家族血缘关系或出身背景，强调从某祖先传承下来的身份。例 ：She is of Chinese descent.
And in January, the Danish government stopped the use of a parenting test known as the FKU for Greenlandic families. And the cases when that test was used, around 300 of them, are being reconsidered. Kupala, you have your own story to tell on this, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a mom to twins, and we are from Greenland. And I'm not allowed to have a Christmas with them. I'm not allowed to be with them in their birthdays. And they have too many rules, and we don't understand why.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to start, if I may, with the Minister, with Naja Nathanielsson. Do you know why there is this disparity in numbers? I know that it is a big issue both in Greenland and in Denmark.
That we've been discussing a lot in the government and also with the parliament members. I know it's a thing that is, again, it's not partisan. I think everybody shares the idea that this is somehow a post-colonial structure, really. You see in Denmark. I think you can call it structural racism to some extent, that you see that Inuit people or Greenlanders are viewed in a different way and a different setting than Danish counterparts. So I think this is just one out of many cases that we are debating with the Danish state currently. We also have stories from the past, the IUD case, where women were given IUDs without knowledge or consent. We have Greenlandic children that was adopted against their parents' knowledge or will.
Sorry, just briefly, IUDs IUDs for members of the audience that don't know are contraceptive coils that were inserted
coils.
without what was believed to be legal consent. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of these cases where there have been committed violations against Inuit, especially women really, but also just Inuit people in general. And you have to see that in a larger context and not look at it as individual cases, but look at the structure.
Kenneth Anker, do you know why this enormous disparity between
disparity 的简体中文翻译及相关信息：一、核心翻译词性名词，中文翻译差异不等悬殊，发音差异不定悬殊，根据差异的程度和语境选择更贴切的译法。核心均指事物之间在数量、质量、水平等方面存在的明显不同。二、含义解析指两个或多个事物在某一维度，如收入、教育水平、资源分配、发展速度等尚存在的显著不均衡的差异，这种差异通常带有不合理或需要关注的隐含意味，尤其常用于描述社会领域中需要改善的不平等现象。三、常见搭配与例句。四、语域与近义词辨析。语域可用于正式书面语，如学术报告、政策文件、社会研究和日常讨论，尤其在分析社会问题、经济现象时使用频繁，语气客观，但常隐含对不平等的关注。近义词对比。
Greenlandic parents and Danish parents in Denmark exists. Do you have an understanding of it?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the question, Roberto. And it must be devastating not to be able to have Christmas with your twins. It's absolutely unacceptable in my view. So what should I say? I think it's about indigenous way of living and the way you are living in what you call the civil world. So, and also in regards to how you interpret law and how you put law from the international community into a indigenous aspect. That is the problem. And also in regards to the many Greenlandic people, Inuit people in Denmark, it's about responsibility from the Danish government. The Danish government has for many years neglected the European Council framework of Convention for National Minorities and not wanting to accept Inuit people as a minority in Denmark and put them in their fiscal budget so that they can have a proper and legal way of, if they are going to take away their children, when they're going to the government or the municipality, that they are being treated equally and also respect their language and culture and so forth. They don't do that. We are trying to use the ILO 169, which is about indigenous people's rights, but it's also difficult to do that because you can sort of say that are Inuit people in Denmark indigenous in Denmark? You can sort of say no, but we are indigenous here in Greenland. So that's why another protection has to be with the European Council framework of Convention for National Minorities, so that you can have a system in Denmark that doesn't discriminate Inuit people. I will also say that it's not only in Denmark that there is discrimination. We and also me personally, I experience a lot of structural racism and structural discrimination here in Greenland. And Actually, I never experienced racism in Denmark towards myself, but I experienced it a lot in Greenland from Danish people against me because we have different views of things.
Thank you very much, Kino. Thank you. Louise Elholm, Danish MP. This is a delicate subject. It comes on top of a very full apology by the Danish Prime Minister for the sterilisation or contraception without consent of Greenlandic women, for the removal of Greenlandic children from their parents in the 1950s and 60s. It does appear that the test that was applied to Greenlandic parents may have been culturally inappropriate. What do you see as the answer to the question why so many Inuit children are removed from their parents and put into foster care in Denmark?
Well, I always think it's very unhappy when children are taken away from their parents. The best thing is if they can grow up with their parents and being a part of a family. However, we do have some rather strict rules in Denmark where we take children's rights very seriously. In Denmark, we have treated Greenlanders as any other Dane. That means they have had exactly the same tests as other Danes. However, what we have recognized is that we cannot use the same tests for Greenlanders. There can be a cultural difference, and sometimes there's also difficulties with the language. And therefore, we have decided to move all the cases with the Greenlandic children to a special unit who has to take care of it. So we do not use those tests we use on all other Danish parents. We don't use them for Greenlanders anymore. We're not supposed to use them. It's on the communes, it's not the state who does it. But we are trying to do our best to understand the cultural differences and take care of both the children and the parents. But of course, the best thing is if the children can live together with their parents. And if you would like me to say what's happened in the past as well, it's true. Our Prime Minister has apologized for giving too much birth control, giving too many girls birth control. And it's been a huge taboo for many Greenlandic women who has experienced that in their youth. And for some, it has tremendous consequences. They have not been able to have children. And that's the most terrible tragedy of all when you can't have the children you want. So I think it's very good that our Prime Minister gave an apology, and we are also making a fund to make sure that we can compensate the women.
And are you happy with the speed with which the compensation scheme is being applied? Because again, there are complaints about compensation not being received by some women.
Well, the apology is only a few months old, and we are working on making the fund. It will come soon. So we are working on it. And of course, everything could always go faster than it does. But it's not like we're sitting on our hands. We're actually working on doing our best.
Thank you very much indeed. Kupalu, can I come back to you, if I may? You've heard some answers to your question.
Yeah.
And I'd just ask your thoughts that the test that was applied is no longer going to be applied. It will be a different test for Inuit. How does that make you feel? And if I can ask you about your own future with your own children.
But the test is still going, even if they told us it's removed, it's no longer used, but they're still doing that. I heard some parents, because I also talked to other parents, and it's still going. I don't know why. And yeah, we just want to have our children back and live here in Denmark or move back to Greenland. Some of them only came here to study and want to go back to Greenland. But we feel like sometimes we are in biggest prison in the world.
What about your children, Kupalu? When will you next see them?
In 2 days.
In 2 days' time. 2 days' time. So you have the ability to see them?
Yeah, only 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. Just very briefly, I saw Louise wanted to make a quick point. Louise Elholm from the Danish Parliament.
I just wanted to say that if she experienced them still being used, we had a case with a girl who has been growing up in Denmark, but is of Greenlandic origin, who had the test and had her child removed. I think it's very good when people tell us in the Danish Parliament what's going on and what the cases are, because then we can do something about it. It is in the communes. It's delegated out to the smaller areas in Denmark who has to contact the VISO, the unit who's working with this. So if any Greenlanders experience having these tests, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and also for putting that question to our panel. I really appreciate it. I'm going to move on to our next question. Minnick Hansen has a question from us. Minnick. Hi, Minnick.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, Kupalo, I'm touched by your story, wishing you all the best. My question is, the current infrastructure in Greenland is challenging in the vast areas of harsh nature. Domestically, you can only travel by boat and expensive flights from Air Greenland. How can Greenland overcome this transport problem and dependence upon expensive imports primarily from Denmark and reinvent and improve the distribution of goods and transportation?
Thank you very much, Minnick. Thank you. Hugely important issue to people travelling around Greenland, since there are no roads between towns and cities in Greenland. It is instead travelled by air and by sea. Ulrik Pramgeld from Denmark, an analyst of the relationship in Denmark and Greenland. This is a huge challenge for Greenland and its development, but presumably the cost of linking Greenland by land for a relatively small population is prohibitive.
I don't know, there might be individual stretches of road that might meaningfully be built, but in general the geography is so that you either go by boat or you go by air. The main thing about this is how to use and develop the infrastructure which is there. And Greenland has for since the Second World War depended on old U.S. Air Force bases for the air infrastructure, and the government of Greenland have for the last couple of years really invested huge sums in trying to wrestle, you might see, those societal traffic hubs away from those old bases and instead make the traffic depart and end where people actually live. The trouble is the Americans had one idea that the airstrip in these bases should be where climate allowed traffic regularly, and that's some of the challenges that are now in this rethought infrastructure that Greenland is rolling out. So it's a fragile and an enormous task to do efficient infrastructure under these circumstances for such a small population. Either way it does, and in a sense, I think Minnick's question also pertained to developing resources for self-sufficiency and more generally. The thing is that modern production just values scale in ways that make some of these challenges very daunting for Greenland to.
当听的简体中文翻译及相关信息：一、核心翻译，词性，形容词；中文翻译，令人却步的，使人畏惧的，艰巨的；发音，令人却步的 ring 这的，艰巨的。根据语境侧重选择，核心均指因难度大、规模大或风险高而让人产生退缩、害怕心理。二、含义解析，用于描述任务、目标、情况等具有较高难度、较大压力或较强挑战性，足以让普通人感到紧张、犹豫，甚至不敢尝试。强调事物本身的难度与给人的心理压迫感之间的关联。三、常见搭配与例句。4.
Open this next year, the next two will open, and that will change the map to the better, I think. But it will also it makes some areas more accessible than others, and that could also so there's an upside. There's also a downside to it. So it's very necessary to keep developing infrastructure to the smaller cities and settlements as well, not only by air but also by boat. And I think this is where I come in as Minister for Business, right? Because I do believe, for instance, as Ulrik mentioned, it's about volume as well. And if we can get more tourists to come, or if we can get more industry to Greenland, to certain areas, this will increase the volume of travelers and therefore make it both make it more feasible to make new routes and more affordable prices. So it is a conundrum, and we're trying to address it one problem at a time. But I think volume is one of the key that can unlock the door to get more people going to parts of Greenland.
Thank you very much indeed. Louise Elmholm from the Danish Parliament. Transport is not one of the responsibilities that Denmark has retained by any means, but paying for things is one of the things that Denmark has retained. When you look at the transport situation in Greenland, is it something that you think it needs work and it needs money?
Definitely. Denmark has helped in financing the new airports, and we're also helping to finance an airport in the northeastern part of Greenland. So I think that is one of the things we are able to help Greenland with, even though it's an area they decide for themselves what they want to do. So I definitely see a possibility for us helping where we can, and we are happy to do that. But it is a huge issue. It's very difficult to solve because it's such a huge country with a rather small population. So it's difficult to do anything which is economically possible if you don't support it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Kine Fenker from the opposition party in the Greenlandic Parliament. The question about overcoming the transport problem and the dependence on expensive imports from Denmark.
Well, the infrastructure and transport system, and also utilizing resources within our grasp, what we have here in Greenland, should be politically prioritized. So, and also we can also work with economics, tariffs in regards to what we don't need from the outside, but what we can produce in Greenland, and maybe also more utilizing how we can produce our own food and how we can produce our own building materials and so forth. So it's also about organic growth and not putting in too much big projects like what we have here in Nuuk, Ilulissat and Qaqortoq. It has created hyperinflation in some points because even if you look at housing cost and building cost, they have increased substantially, and where you can say it's hyperinflation. So what we need is a total reform on how we do economics, how we do politics, and what we can agree on in regards to the bigger picture on utilizing our resources here. But also, for many years, we got a block grant from Denmark that wasn't enough at all to build our own infrastructure. And also in regards to the way the economy is built up with our resources taken from Greenland to Denmark, and a non-international shipping route, which we have changed in a good way. Before we only sailed to one single small harbor in North Jutland. Now we can sail to more places like Iceland, Faroe Islands, Germany, and so forth. So we want to be part of the international community. Hence, we want to be a sovereign country. And maybe a little comment to Rupert. The problem: how do you know she's a Greenlander in Denmark? She's a Danish citizen. Her passport says she's a Danish national. So that's why we need the Greenlandic citizenship, and we need to know who is indigenous and who is not, so that we can give the people the rights that they need. So she is showing the exact problem that we have within the Kingdom of Denmark and also Greenlandic government.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Can I go back to our questioner, Minik Hansen? Your own experiences of the transport problem, as you call it, and the need to change?
Yes, I know a lot of families and friends that wants to travel in Christmas time, for example, and summer holidays, but they can't because they have like maybe 2 kids, and it's already too much to travel from North to South Greenland, maybe for visiting families or friends.
What about you? I mean, do you have family outside? You're in the capital, Nuuk. Do you have family outside Nuuk?
I do have families in North Greenland,
Right.
but it's rare that I go visit them unless it's a business trip, because I don't pay for the trips. I can't afford.
That's it for World Questions Greenland. A big thank you to our panel, to all the questioners that contributed to this fascinating debate, and thank you for watching wherever